in a brazen shooting straight out of a crime drama. 53-year-old Francesco Frankie Boy Cali was found with multiple gunshot wounds to the torso outside his home.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're discussing the most high-profile gangland killings of influential crime bosses.
By 5 p.m., Gotti and his crew of assassins were in position. 4 gunmen stood at various points near the entrance to Sparks.
Carmine Galante. This cigar-chomping mafioso may have only been an acting boss of the Bonanno crime family at the time of his death, but that doesn't make the details of said demise any less gruesome.
So it ended here in the backyard of a Brooklyn restaurant. Carmine Galante was the victim of a few men with guns.
Galante was one in a long and unfortunate line of mafia bosses who got whacked while they were trying to enjoy dinner. Philip Rusty Rastelli was by all accounts the rightful head of the Bonanno family, but Galante committed an internal coup in 1976 while Rastelli was in prison.
He really saw himself as becoming the boss of bosses, and he was not a well-liked individual. Not only did the commission not want Galante to become head of the Bonanno crime family, they certainly did not want him to become the boss of bosses.
Galante quickly escalated tensions with the Gambino family during this time, via a series of alleged assassinations. The acting Bonanno boss was shot to death as a result of this power grab, shortly after finishing his lunch at an Italian restaurant on July 12, 1979.
It was almost surreal, the whole thing. I don't think he thought he would ever die. He's got that God complex.
Mickey Spillane. No, we're not talking about the noted crime author of the same name. This Mickey Spillane was an Irish-American mob boss who butted heads with the Italian mafia over control of New York's Hell's Kitchen neighborhood.
And in the west side of Manhattan, Mickey Spillane ruled from his own White House, the White House Bar, which he opened in 1960. But there was trouble looming for both men.
Spillane's operations in Hell's Kitchens held designs for activity that pushed into mafia-owned Manhattan territory, and a war between both factions would occur as a result. Spillane may have been known as a gentleman gangster during his tenure at the top, but the mafia eventually found a way to get Spillane via the ambitious Jimmy Coonan.
As Jimmy Coonan tells Roy DeMeo, you know, I can be boss of the neighborhood, but I'll never really be boss of the neighborhood as long as Mickey Spillane's still alive.
This internal threat to Spillane's empire combined forces with Brooklyn hitman Roy DeMeo, and fatal shots rang out against Hell's Kitchen's gentleman gangster outside his home on May 13, 1977.
Spillane headed down to the street unarmed and walked over to the car to talk to whoever it was that was there, and he was shot 5 times by someone sitting in the car.
Johnny Pelia. Canada may not be the first place the average person thinks of when it comes to organized crime, but those people are forgetting about former bosses like Johnny Pelia.
That's Johnny Pelia, their older
Yes.
brother. What was he like?
Cold. Just cold. That's all I can say.
Pelia was a major player in Hamilton, Ontario, a crime boss whose profile you may recognize from the infamous French Connection trafficking crimes of the 1960s. This was a boss who ruled through fear, a smart and cunning man at the top who was as callous as he was ruthless. Even the most prepared and cautious crime bosses tend to slip up eventually, however, and time did catch up to Johnny Pelia on May 31st, 1997. This scourge of Hamilton was shot from behind by a hitman working for the rival Musitano crime family. John Damato. Johnny Boy Damato was another acting boss, this time for the DeCavalcanti crime family from New Jersey.
John Damato was not respected at all by internally the Cavalcanti family.
He was kind of a lunatic. He had a reputation as being a party guy, somebody you really can't rely on.
Damato was promoted to this position in absentia by proper boss Giovanni Righi, who was incarcerated at this time. Johnny Boy wouldn't enjoy this temporary position of power for very long, however, as Damato would be dead less than 2 years removed from his promotion.
In October of 1992, after leaving his girlfriend Tina S.'s house, the Cavalcanti family godfather Johnny Boy Damato vanished without a trace.
It's said that his 1992 assassination was motivated by Damato's alleged bisexuality, allegations that were further corroborated in courtroom testimony by DeCavalcanti hitman Anthony Capo. John Damato was shot by Capo while the former was riding in the backseat of a car.
They drive him towards a section of Brooklyn called Mill Basin, and while he's in the car, Anthony Capo turns around and shoots him in the head.
The body was never found. Angelo Bruno. Angelo Bruno was another mafia boss whose reputation tended to eschew the organization's rough-and-tumble reputation for violence.
To the authorities, he portrays himself as a quiet tobacco salesman. But in reality, he makes millions from illicit gambling rackets.
However, this reputation did not save the gentle Don from sustaining fatal shotgun wounds while sitting in his car on March 21, 1980.
Bruno lives in the heart of the city's Italian-American community. Here he feels safe. As a mafia don, he rules these streets, but not for long.
What's even worse was that this act was carried out by one of Bruno's own, an associate and advisor named Antonio Caponegro. This unapproved hit essentially meant Caponegro was a dead man, as the governing Mafia Commission had this traitor assassinated for his insolence and ambition.
Rumors spread. They revealed that Caponegro murdered Angelo Bruno so he could take the position of Philadelphia Godfather.
Other associates who conspired with Caponegro also suffered violent ends for their trouble. Frank Cali. The most recent demise covered in this video served as a wake-up call to anyone who surmised that the American Mafia was finished airing their violently dirty laundry on city streets.
Following the brazen murder of a reputed mob boss, tonight sources tell ABC News police in New York are investigating whether it was a sanctioned hit or the opening salvo in a new mafia war.
Frank Cali was serving as another acting boss for the Gambino crime family when he was brazenly assassinated outside of his Staten Island home on the 13th of March, 2019.
According to police, Cali was having dinner with his family around 9 p.m. when he stepped outside to talk to someone and was shot and killed.
Cali's death served as the first time a mafia boss had been cut down in this fashion since the mid-1980s. As a result, the violent lives and deaths of those involved with organized crime once again were splattered on New York City headlines. Everything old was new again.
Detectives believe Camello shot Cali 10 times outside his Staten Island home. Law enforcement sources say security camera footage shows Camello pulling into Cali's driveway on Wednesday night and moments later opening fire.
Sam Giancana. If the adage, "the enemy of my enemy is my friend," holds any water, then perhaps it could explain why the CIA enlisted the help of mafia boss Sam Giancana when they were attempting to assassinate former Cuban leader Fidel Castro.
The CIA had invited him to take part in a bizarre plot to murder Fidel Castro. The Mafia were the fall guys. If the operation was discovered, they, not the government, would take the blame.
Additionally, it was shortly before Giancana was due to speak before the U.S. Senate in 1975 on alleged agency overreach when the mob boss was gunned down in his home.
In 1975, he was called before a Senate committee investigating the CIA plot to kill Castro. The night of June the 19th, 2 escorts had just arrived in Chicago to take him safely to Washington.
The uncorroborated story alleges that Giancana was cooking sausage and peppers when he was shot by a hitman. But what is known is that the boss's body was found on the floor of his basement kitchen.
Like so many who live in a world of secrets, Giancana perhaps in the end understood less about the world than he thought he did.
Albert Anastasia. This history of the modern American mafia can be traced back in part to ruthless individuals like Albert Anastasia.
Albert Anastasia was the perfect model. Within the mafia, Anastasia was recognized as a ruthless, unflinching killer.
This Mad Hatter was a killer and a boss from the original Murder Incorporated who would rise in power to head the Gambino crime family.
Hits are no longer personal vendettas. They are business. Luciano imposes strict rules that govern how Anastasia and Murder Incorporated should operate.
It's unclear today who was responsible for slaying Anastasia while he was sitting in a barber's chair, nor has any one family taken full responsibility for the hit.
Albert Anastasia is laid to rest. As a testament to his brutal character, only a handful of mourners attend his funeral.
Rumors abound, however. Was it ordered from the Patriarca family over in Rhode Island? Internal dissenters from the Gambinos? No one's really sure, and dead men tell no tales. Bugsy Siegel. The name Bugsy Siegel is one that's recognized even by those without a passing interest in the history of organized crime.
Bugsy used his charm and millions of dollars from the Mafia on the gamble of a lifetime.
That's because it was men like Siegel whose big dreams and even bigger plans helped turn the city of Las Vegas into the sinner's paradise it is today.
According to legend, Bugsy saw an oasis in the desert with bright lights, luxurious accommodations, and gaming tables.
However, the mob isn't exactly patient with failure, and Siegel's initial attempts to turn a profit with the Flamingo Hotel were just that. The former Murder Incorporated man would be dead within a year after the disastrous Flamingo opening, the victim of an assassin's bullet on June 20th, 1947.
When a man crept up through the shrubbery against the window, somebody put a carbine on the trestle outside the living room.
9 shots ripped through the silence.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Paul Castellano. Remember how we mentioned that Frank Cali's murder was the first NYC boss slaying since the 80s? Well, it was the murder of Paul Castellano that served as the infamous precursor to that modern fatality.
Once the Gotti crew learned that Bellotti was going to be brought into the inner circle, it was a kill or be killed situation for them.
Castellano's death wasn't approved by the mob commission, but was instead the work of an upstart named John Gotti.
Gotti and Angelo Ruggiero recruited members from within the Gambino family to hit Castellano.
This internal coup within the Gambino crime family was organized by Gotti, as the future Teflon Don would assemble a murderous crew to take down Castellano in broad daylight. The slaying occurred outside of the Sparks Steakhouse, as both Castellano and his bodyguard Thomas Bellotti were shot dead by a group of men, on orders from Gotti.
Following the assassination, Gotti took over as boss of the Gambinos, but legal issues plagued his reign.